With Jujutsu Kaisen's conclusion, I wanted to shed some light into a character who I consider to be the story's most well-rounded antagonist, Mahito. He's the embodiment of everything curses stand for, as well as an encapsulation of the worst humanity has to offer. What I think makes him interesting is that he presents the dichotomy between humans and curses. While he is one of the most abhorrent creatures in the narrative, one may argue that he is one of the most human characters in the series in his own sickening way. One of the key components of Jujutsu Kaisen is seeing how these characters come to terms with the Jujutsu world as they form different beliefs and philosophies, for better or worse, as in the case of Geto Suguru or Satoru Gojo. With that in mind, Mahito's nihilism and the many aspects of his character serves as a perfect antagonist for the story. The first thing that comes to mind when it comes to Mahito is how true he is with himself. He's a character who's typically immature and playful, as seen how he usually acts in many scenes. For instance, he decides to play a game of Jogo to see who gets Yuji first, and the winner gets to do whatever they want to him. While Mahito does show an interest in bringing forth a new age of curses, it comes off more of an interest on how those events will play out. Otherwise, he wouldn't be attempting to kill Yuji given the curse's goals and trying to summon Sukuna. His actions are derived from a desire to satiate his boredom, and nothing else. It is a bottomless pit that will never be satisfied as he constantly causes more chaos. Well, not until he meets the one person whose existence solely opposes everything Mahito's about. He is like a child, one who plays with his toys, and once he gets bored of them, he moves on to the next. And this is evident in what he says to Yuji in Shibuya, that in the future, he will forget about him too once the fun is all over. Yuji is nothing but another human to him, another plaything.
でもその過程、戦いという今現在をもっと楽しんだ方がいいと思うよ。
真人は楽しいのですか？
まあね。でも、最中感じる優越や快楽が動機になったのはごく最近だよ。気づけば、欺きたぶらかし殺し、いつの間にか満たされている。人間が食って寝て犯すように、これが呪いの本能なんだろう。俺たちは理性を獲得したかもしれない。でもそれは本能に逆らう理由にはならないよ。魂は本能と理性のブレンド。その割合は他人にとやかく言われるもんじゃないけどさ。
They are curses, so why should human morality be applied to them? To be a curse is to live according to their desires. This scene serves to oppose Todo and Yuji's conversation in Shibuya after Yuji's breakdown. Similarly to Mahito's tendencies to not be shackled by human judgment and being true to himself, Todo enforces to Yuji that he must not be shackled by the concept of a meaningful life or death, as that can negatively impact the meaning of one's experiences. It has this layer on Mahito and Yuji's dynamic, as it highlights the meaninglessness of searching for meaning in differing ways. In a way, Yuji's journey of a search for meaning is something Mahito touches on early in the story. It's the constant desire to look for a meaningful death in Yuji that caused a lot of issues with various characters such as Junpei Yoshino and Kento Nanami. This is one of the many aspects of Yuji and Mahito's dynamic which we'll discuss later in the video. As I've discussed in my Satoru Gojo video, Jujutsu Kaisen manages to incorporate a character's abilities into their characterization, and Mahito is no exception. We see this in how idol transfiguration is utilized as a metaphoric representation of what Mahito is all about. The ability to take one's soul and morph it into a hideous monster is exactly reminiscent of what he makes of Junpei. He gradually manipulates him into doing his bidding, convincing him that the people he hates are the problem, and eventually causing Junpei to become the thing he detested being the most, staining his soul and resorting to murder. He perfectly plays into one's insecurities and circumstances, not by telling them what they should do, but leading them into the answer. Because if he were telling them what they should do and what they shouldn't do, it would come off as controlling, which is why Junpei is convinced Mahito is a good person and what he's doing is righteous. Mahito can't be a bad person. He's the one who's been giving him advice this entire time. How could he be wrong if the people who caused this were evil? They deserve to die. In addition, he even goes as far as to taunt Junpei for being such a gullible fool in believing him. Mahito is truly a curse who does not have an ounce of sympathy, which is further emphasized in the Mahito and Sukuna laugh when Yuji requests Sukuna to heal Junpei. Mahito is easily one of the most vile characters in the series. Given the fact that he was created via human hatred, it leads to a great understanding of the human psyche, and it's what makes him such a perfect manipulator and instigator in many portions of the story. Although one may make the argument that this in of itself is what makes Mahito feel one of the most human characters in the story. While Mahito highlights the worst aspects of humanity, Yuji highlights their best. How fitting for Yuji and Mahito to come off this way, where the two essentially embody the opposite sides of the spectrum. The way he torments people is unlike any other antagonist in the series. It's what makes him so despised by a majority of the audience. He attacks not just physically, but mentally as well, and ensures that it is the worst kind of mental attack possible. He may pretend to be the leaning shoulder for somebody and offer advice, only to throw them away the second he's bored of them or they've fulfilled their purpose, as shown with Junpei. Or he may find the perfect toy and relishes in wanting to crush every single thing they've ever stood for, as shown with Yuji. In a way, Mahito is the perfect embodiment of Jogo's vision for curses. He adds another layer to Mahito as the two of them go about their goals in different ways, and for different reasons.
人間は嘘でできている。表に出る正の感情や行動には必ず裏がある。だが、負の感情、憎悪や殺意などは偽りのない真実だ。そこから生まれ落ちた我々呪いこそ、真に純粋な本物の人間なのだ。偽物は消えてしかるべき。
Jogo is someone who can also be viewed as human, but in a different way than Mahito. He looks down on them, seeing them as nothing but fakes for putting up facades and personas, all for the sake of hiding their true natures. In a different point of view, he may not have been viewed as an antagonist, considering the fact that the way he views humans and looks down on them is essentially how Jujutsu sorcerers view curses as entities to exorcise. He is remorseless when it comes to killing humans, but sympathizes with his cursed comrades, as seen in how he avenges Dagon's death, and simply wants to create a world where they emerge as the true human race. As long as curses come on top, that's all that matters. They will always be the true humans as they live true to themselves and aren't made of lies. I think how I would put it is that Jogo is a curse who acts human and yearns to be one, while Mahito is a human in the worst way imaginable and embraces his identity as a curse.
わしらは今の人間どもとは違うのだ。死すら恐れず、目的のために裏表のない道を歩む。それが偽物どもにはない呪いの真髄だ。
違うっしょ。軸がぶれようと一貫性がなかろうと、偽りなく欲求の赴くままに行動する。それが俺たち呪いだ。
Another trait of Mahito that is explored via his ability is his nihilism. He's someone who, despite claiming that life has no purpose, is in a constant journey of self-discovery regarding the soul and the heart. Are they both one and the same? Because if so, which one comes first? It's the first thing he asks his opponents the second he encounters them. Having the ability to look into countless souls and transfigure them is utilized to further emphasize Mahito's belief. With how many souls he's looked into, eventually they'll feel nothing special. It's as if they're animals viewed in the lens of humans. With how many animals there are around, most of them are essentially cattle to them and are used for satiating their hunger. And I think this is how Mahito views people in general. They all exist for the sole purpose of satiating his curiosity and boredom, yearning for the excitement in this meaningless existence of everything. At least in his own worldview, as he's wont to believe that everybody has their own worldview, as shown in his conversation with Kenjaku and Shibuya.
マヒト、見てくれ。君は魂は肉体の先にあると述べたが、やはり肉体は魂であり、魂は肉体なんだよ。でなければこの現象にも、入れ替え後の私の脳に肉体の記憶が流れてくるのにも説明がつかない。
それって一貫してないといけないこと？俺とゲトウの術式では世界が違うんじゃない？
術式は世界か。いいね。素敵だ。
Each of these abilities shape up these characters' worldviews, and I think it works exceptionally well here. This is just an interpretation of mine, but perhaps one could insinuate that this is also a way to establish that Mahito truly is in his own world, unfathomable by anybody in the story, going around doing whatever the hell he wants. If things exist for the sake of it, then what is the point of life itself? It's this core aspect of him that makes Mahito Mahito. It's a unique take on a nihilistic character, as in many cases, that nihilism would cause him to be in despair or confusion, attempting to do anything in pursuit of pleasure, happiness, or meaning, such as in the case of Kirei Kotomine, especially in Fate Zero. Whereas with Mahito, he's not interested in any pursuit of meaning or happiness. That meaninglessness is what makes him happy. Antagonists that work exceptionally well are ones who are typically in perfect opposition to the protagonist. Perhaps they may be a different version of them, such as Betelgeuse Romani Conti from ReZero, and highlight multiple aspects of the protagonist. In Mahito's case, it's a mix of both. He thrives to break every part of Yuji's soul. Every single aspect of these two characters opposes one another, yet they still somehow share core similarities to a certain degree. Yuji is someone who yearns to help as many people as possible thanks to his grandfather's wishes. Help people and ensure that you're surrounded by them on your deathbed. He's constantly in a journey of seeking the meaning in death itself throughout the story, especially with the concept of a natural death. What I think makes things even more compelling is that this journey of his is not his own, rather it's a request from somebody else. while Mahito's goals and ideologies are purely his own. In addition, a core component of Yuji is to save as many people as possible, yet there is that slight chance that the people he saved may be malicious and kill people in the future. It's an aspect of Yuji that gets challenged various times throughout the narrative, as seen in his battle against Junpei. Yuji tries to save Junpei and prevent him from attacking his school after his mother's death, and it's in this incident where Junpei really challenges Yuji's tendency to save others without second thought. Why do in the first place if the person is deserving of death? These monsters who have ruined his life can't have a heart. It just doesn't make any sense to Junpei. This shows Yuji's sympathetic nature, because rather than refusing to listen to Junpei's reasonings for his actions, he tries sympathizing with him and his circumstances, and realizes that what he said to Junpei is foolish and insincere, and vows to discover whoever has caused all this. This paints a similarity between Yuji and Mahito, as one can argue that the two essentially have no reason nor meaning in doing what they do. Just as Yuji saves people for no reason, prioritizing saving others over himself, and his understanding of people's emotions and attempts to show that empathy to others, Mahito causes mayhem for no reason, prioritizing his own amusement above all else, and is completely detached from any connections, even including the other curses in the story. He may be on good terms with them such as Jogo and the others, but it never feels like he genuinely feels anything towards them as comrades as opposed to how Jogo views the other curses. However, after being forced to kill transfigured humans, things get a bit foggy. It's these scenarios that cause Yuji to gradually start questioning this course of action, as shown in his conversation with Nanami after the battle against Mahito. Because who is Yuji to decide whether or not somebody is good or evil? People aren't simply categorized into one or the other. And most importantly, what really is a natural death? Who decided that it must be a peaceful one? There are instances such as killing these transfigured humans can be considered natural death by this logic, as you're taking them out of their misery as they've been morphed into a mindless monster. Death comes to everybody differently, and there really is no right answer for all this, and he definitely cannot do it alone. He isn't Gojo, and relying on other people is perfectly okay. And this is shown in how he reacts upon realizing that Nobara is out there assisting him defeat Mahito in Shibuya. I think it's one of the core factors to Yuji's character arc, the pointlessness of searching for that right answer, which is further highlighted in his scene with Todo after his breakdown in Shibuya. Yuji is tormented, hating himself for his inability to save anybody in Shibuya, and Todo's response here encapsulates everything regarding Yuji's journey. He makes the argument that the search itself can be disorienting and can diminish the value of one's life and death, because nobody truly knows what that meaning exactly is. Yuji may never find the answer, but he needs to figure out what his role is in all this. Mahito serves to shake every single bone in Yuji Itadori. He utilizes Yuji's ideologies against him as seen in their first battle. He pulls out transfigured humans and has them target Yuji, fully aware that Yuji is incapable of killing them. What makes matters worse is that Mahito goes one step further, and that's to have the transfigured humans have an ounce of consciousness. He confirms this to Nanami in their initial battle that he hasn't perfected this technique, and sometimes their souls can seep out, and they can be seen requesting to die and be freed from their suffering. It's these little things that Mahito does to ensure the absolute worst to people, and it's due to the fact that he understands how Yuji is fundamentally, that his tactics work so effectively on him, especially in Shibuya. He wants to kill every single ideology Yuji has, and it's shown in how he believes the soul can be killed multiple times. I think this can be interpreted as Mahito wanting to destroy Yuji in multiple ways, killing him metaphorically by tarnishing everything he stands for, and then killing him literally. Their final battle in Shibuya encapsulates everything about their dynamic, especially their similarities and differences. They are one and the same, two sides of the same coin. They are the ideal representation of humans and curses respectively. For every action Yuji does, there is a similarity within Mahito. As Mahito kills humans without a second thought, Yuji kills curses without a second thought. But, it is important to note that there is a distinction here, and it's the fact that Yuji has previously not been content with killing curses.
人は死ぬ。それは仕方ない。ならせめて正しく死んでほしい。そう思ってたんだ。だから引き金を引かせないことばかり考えてた。でも、自分で引き金を引いて分かんなくなったんだ。正しい死って何？
そんなこと私にだって分かりませんよ。善人が安らかに、悪人が罰を受け死ぬことが正しいとしても、世の中の多くの人は善人でも悪人でもない。死は万人の執着ですが、同じ死は存在しない。それらをすべて正しく導くというのはきっと苦しい。私はお勧めしません。
Is Yuji really righteous if he's constantly killing curses? Because if so, how can he call Mahito out on his behavior? Mahito is merely a curse, so why should he follow human morality over his true instincts? It highlights that the two of them could care less about the other's kind, and vow to exterminate them as long as there's breath in their body, whether it be for entertainment or justice. I think there's just something ironic in how Mahito becomes enlightened and is at his highest point in the same instance as Yuji's lowest point. Not only has he lost Nanami, but Nobara. all by the hands of the monster that represents humanity right in front of him. Yuji has surely been broken and lost all resolve, and it's exactly what Mahito wanted. I think Mahito's speech to Yuji does also touch upon Yuji and his tendency to try to listen to people. As we've seen previously with how he realized his mistake in trying to brute force through Junpei and tell him to stop what he's doing, trying to kill everybody in his school, here he ignores Mahito's claim of the two being the same and tries to stubbornly reject that notion and desperately cling to victory. However, as Mahito puts it, this is not some fantasy or movie, and as long as Yuji denies the concept of them being alike, he will never win.
それはな、戦争なんだよ。間違いを正す戦いじゃねえ。正しさの押し付け合いだ。ペラペラの正義のだ。お前は俺だ。虎杖裕二。俺が何も考えずに人を殺すように。お前も何も考えずに人を助ける。俺たちの反応とお前らの理性が書き込んだ尊厳。100年後に残るのはどっちかっつうそういう戦いだ。そんなことにすら気づけないやつがどうして俺に勝てるよなあ。虎杖裕二、殺した呪いを数えたことはあるかい？ないよな。俺も殺した人間の数とかマジでどうでもいいもん。お前のこともそのうち忘れるさ。
I really love this because not only does it encapsulate Mahito's character, but it also explores Yuji and the way he views humans and curses, and it gets used against him here. The way he viewed Junpei's struggles as opposed to Mahito where he ignores him due to it being curses nonsense is exactly why he was about to lose. And what I think really captures the true essence of Mahito in this scene is that he says he will eventually forget Yuji, the person he's been fixated on throughout the entire story up to this point. Whether he actually will or not is besides the point. I think this is a means to show how detached Mahito is from everything. While I think Yuji will always remember Mahito for all the tragedies he's caused him, as well as the growth he's undergone thanks to his battles against him, Mahito merely views Yuji as a toy, a plaything to humiliate and destroy, and move on to the next. This moment serves to show just how human Yuji is, as well as how Mahito embraces himself as a curse to the very end. Unlike Jogo, he may be human, but he never once refers to himself as the true humans. It's ironic. Mahito is constantly searching for the abstract meaning in life, yet Yuji is constantly searching for the physical meaning in death. Yet, Yuji finally accepts Mahito's notion of their similarities at the very end. He is a true hypocrite, but it's meaningless, just as everything he's been searching for up to this point. The desire to seek for the meaning behind the meaningful death, or the desire to seek for meaning in general, it's all null, and I think this is an extremely powerful moment for Yuji, as this is him finally deciding the path he's going to take from here. Perhaps, eventually there will be meaning to his actions, but like Todo has told him, he can only focus on what he's been entrusted with, which is his role as a curse exterminator. And I think this is fully explored in the scene where Yuji uses his domain against Sukuna in Shinjuku Showdown. He may have initially thought of himself as a cog in the wheel, but this would insinuate that humans are born with a predetermined duty, which Yuji realizes to be mistaken. But does that make one's life as meaningless as Mahito puts it? No, because as Yuji says, even the most minuscule of moments can go a long way to one's life and give it value. Walking your dog, goofing off, playing video games, they're all moments that add up to a bigger picture at the end of things. Even a life with no connections will still hold value, as there will still be fragments of your existence. Just like Mahito, Yuji has stated before that he's never viewed himself as somebody special. He is just a person in this world. Whether this is right or wrong is not the point, as Yuji himself doesn't know the answer to that, and he doesn't need to. His journey throughout Jujutsu Kaisen has always been the assumption that he must find the answers to everything, whether it be the meaning of death, the fundamentals of a peaceful death, and many things alike. In an ironic sense, this scene highlights how Yuji has become Mahito in a way. Just as Mahito finds life itself to be meaningless and feeling joy from others' pain, Yuji finds death itself to be meaningless and feeling joy from saving others. They will always be one and the same, yet Yuji will always be the one on top, as he will always value life to its fullest and every ounce of it. Mahito's defeat couldn't be more perfect for his character. A childish tantrum with a lack of any meaningful words or responses to Yuji's remarks. It's ugly, repulsive, and pathetic, desperately clinging on to life, as he runs away from the mirror in front of him, Yuji Itadori. And I think there's nothing else that can be described as more human than this.
認めるよ、真人。俺はお前だ。俺はお前を否定したかった。お前の言ったことなんて知らねえよって。今は違う。ただお前を殺す。また新しい呪いとして生まれたら、そいつも殺す。名前を変えても、姿を変えても、何度でも殺す。もう意味も理由もいらない。この行いに意味が生まれるのは、俺が死んで何百年も経った後なのかもしれない。どれは大きな何かの歯車の一つに過ぎないんだと思う。錆びつくまで呪いを殺し続ける。この戦いの俺の役割なんだ。
The anime depicts his defeat masterfully. especially with the crying and screeching. It's like he's regressed into a child. And I really love the ironic ending for Mahito. At the very end of it, he is nothing but a tool, whose role was solely to be absorbed by Kenjaku, as he states that he likely wanted Mahito to grow so that he'd be able to absorb him using cursed spirit manipulation. While Yuji grows to realize that the concept of being a tool in this world is flawed, Mahito succumbs to that notion and becomes somebody else's tool.